And here we go. All right, it is May 1st. It is in many places a joyous day. Everybody should get a bouquet of flowers. Beginning of the spring season, everything is the birthing of everything. The April showers are done, the flowers are coming. We have a great guest today, but before we get rolling here, let's have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
I owe a lot to Louisiana for making boyhood dreams come true. When I was a boy, I learned to do business, and I learned that God loved rich folks too. And I owe a lot to Cajun country, little bitty towns and big towns too. I owe a lot to Louisiana, Louisiana. This one's for you. When I started my life in Franklinton, in the Baton Rouge and LSU, it made my life really rich. Louisiana, this one's for you.
All right. Well done, Johnny.
Well done.
So Johnny, we have the evolution of the year is moving fast. Lots of predictions on what's coming, the economy, the cryptocurrency, lots of layoff in high tech, the stock market keeping up. Innovation is thriving. Your selection of the disruptive 50s coming. We're planning Digital 360 Summit in September. We are dealing with flying vehicles and autonomous vehicles and AI everywhere. What's going on, Johnny?
Well, of course, in my life, with the emergence of university protests now, there's a lot of talk about that, and what's going on at my university, the University of Texas Austin, where I'm emeritus faculty, and to Columbia, and my graduate school, Northwestern University in Chicago. So it's people are trying to compare it to other kinds of protests in the 60s and like that, but it's not, because there's no solution. There's no carrot to throw. I think America will continue to support Israel. I think that is a fact. So I think there's no carrot to throw. And in the midst, of course, is coming from some of our great research universities like MIT. And by the way, I had 18 entrepreneurs from MIT in Austin last Friday night. So that's certainly in the news, and we hope that that ends. As I said, there's no solution, because we will always support Israel, and we will support Israeli policies there. And as a decorated Vietnam veteran myself, with war, sometimes you take sides, and I think that's what's happening now. I think in terms of the technology, yes, I've been looking at the disruptive technologies. And Alan, I'm on the CNBC Disruptive Technology panel that chooses the disruptive technologies. And those are the things, as Llewellyn has pointed out, and we have pointed out on this show, that it is what has kept the science has kept American jobs alive. As it destroys jobs, and it will destroy jobs, then we expect for jobs to come back. But let me tell you that technology is booming. It's booming in how we communicate. It's booming in how we predict things. There's a new technology that now uses modal math instead of regression toward the mean and that kind of stuff. And it's Venn diagram, and it's much more predictive than what we're using as the operating system for AI. You can go back to modal math, and I took it to Michael Dale, who started in our shop here at IC Square, and trying to introduce him to that. The other thing that you mentioned is the economy. The economy, as we like to say, the stock market is one economy, and everybody else has got another economy in terms of, do they have a job? Well, the job numbers were up. There's a lot of discussions about that. As interest rates continue to drop, then people are moving resources away from long-term interest rates to get away from interest rates and going back to the stock market. And the international stuff is very, very interesting. What's going on in China, the war in Europe. If we look at what's going on in China, they are really made a commitment, a continued commitment, I might add, to their infrastructure, a continued commitment to their transportation system, a continued commitment to building new smart cities. All of that comes together in an international way that's being interrupted by war. You wonder what would happen if there were no war and everybody would concentrate on job, wealth creation, and technology without the presence of war. But as they say, it is what it is, and we really have to do that. So I'm a little concerned about my university and the faculty call for the dismissal of Jay Hertzel, one of my dear friends, who's now president of UT Austin. And I think these are the things that's going on in the midst of all the great technology, in the midst of everything that we've always done in America.
All right, Llewellyn, what say you?
Well, I, as usual, I somewhat agree with Johnny. I do think he overestimates the importance of disruptive technology. Disruption is of itself not a virtue. It's got to produce something quite superior to that which it has displaced to have an intelligent place in the scheme of things. This morning I was on the television with 5 directors of national laboratories, and those are always very exciting places, and these are very exciting people who see technology in many things. Often it's improving extant technologies rather than conceiving an entirely new one. I would say some of the emphasis has been on materials, better materials, for example, in transmitting electricity means you don't need as much generation. Materials in better materials ease up the pressure on some specifics. Very much so the case in batteries, where the simpler the battery, the better, less demand on rare earths and materials in short supply like copper, lithium, and materials of that nature, graphite. It is a very changing time, but it's exponential in the change, and there's a tendency, if you concentrate too much on the brand new, to forget that this is evolutionary across society, and that something like materials changes everything, not dramatically, but quietly, effectively, evolutionary, in an evolutionary way, I should say. We face a crossroads. We've got a political election coming up of great consequence, because one of the candidates has shown some indifference, even hostility, to the scientific institutions of the government. For example, NOAA, which is the weather forecasting arm of the government, so vitally important at a time of changing weather patterns, an indifference to the incredible research that, and sometimes hostility to the incredible research that the Department of Agriculture does in the field of agriculture, bringing better crops, safer crops, more productive use of land and other resources. I hope that we don't get a political change that moves against science. I think it's a real possibility. And like so many things that are not being raised in this political season, that is one of them. I've mentioned others, which include artificial intelligence and housing, which is not being raised in this political season, and which the political class is ignoring, maybe because it's too difficult, or simply because we in the media are too preoccupied with outrageous statements and outrageous conduct. We move forward into a time when human hope has never been greater, but human folly has not been abandoned.
Got it, got it. Well, we have a great guest today, Alan Thomas, CEO of Association for Materials Protection and Performance. And Alan is from Louisiana, a decorated U.S. Coast Guard veteran. Thank you for your service, sir. And an MBA, Christian education, a great guy all around. Alan, tell us about yourself and tell us about the Association for Materials Protection and Performance.
Thank you for having me. That's a tough opening to follow there with the three of you. So I'll just share what I know and where we come from with the materials. It's an honor is the least I could say to serve as the CEO of the Association for Materials Protection and Performance. We're over 35,000 members worldwide. We are comprised of everywhere from PhD engineers down to the laborers that work in shipyards in Indonesia, blasting and painting ships that transfer cargo across the globe, and everywhere in between. I have the opportunity to represent and to serve that population. It's fantastic. What the things that we like to bring forward to the table is our members believe with all their hearts that we were the original sustainability association before sustainability became cool to talk about. At the heart of what we do is try to prevent and manage corrosion. And if you look at the antithesis of that, that is the epitome of sustainability, is our members work daily to extend the life cycle of the materials that form our infrastructure around the globe. And they're on the cutting edge. They're in the national laboratories. They're in international laboratories. I got to visit an amazing laboratory in Doha just a few months ago. There's all across India, we have members working in those labs, looking at applied technologies that not only create sustainable materials for a long-term future for everyone, but really about the safety of those materials. Because right alongside sustainability is the issue of the safety of life. If you look at a bridge collapse, you look at a cargo ship sinking due to corrosion, pipelines erupting due to corrosion and loss of life there. So our association is at the heart of sustainability, both from life and from materials perspectives. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I was and welcome, another Louisiana guy.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question. In terms of the technologies and how we can look at things that's not doing well, whether it's cracks in airplanes, whether it's cracks in the bottom of ships, whether it's automobile and automobiles, and especially military kinds of vehicles. How has the technology changed, the science changed that would allow you to say, this ship hull is okay, this airplane hull is okay. For the Air Force, we have so many cracks now in our fighter jets. Mm-hmm. Is it more of an assembly line? I know it's not just a walk around. Is AI involved in that? Do we have machines that can do much better than we did 10 years ago? How is that carried out for material science and the sustainability of that science?
Thank you for that question, John. It's a little bit of all. I'll highlight a few that we see that are prominent currently being used. To Mr. King's point earlier, some of it's not really new or cutting edge technology. It's just advanced, somewhat maybe incrementally, but those incremental advancements now have created substantial leaps for us to be able to use them. One of the ones that we see a lot that's gaining a lot of traction and use is the use of digital twins. And so now with the opportunity to recreate the real environment in a digital space and run it through different stress factors, run it through different scenarios, whether you're running Monte Carlo simulations on or whatever, the digital twin space is really great. AI is definitely a piece of that. Machine learning is a huge piece. I had the privilege of being in Saudi Aramco's AI center a few months back and just literally stand in awe at what they're doing with technology and AI and on the predictive side of things, right? And so they were, I think, they told me they were measuring and managing about 7 million data points per millisecond, something, mind blowing like that, with the predictive analysis ability to know when a pump was going to go out almost on the day. And then that, of course, informs your maintenance, right? So to your point with aircraft, and we work a lot in aerospace, it's a combination of using those kinds of technologies with existing, human brain power and know-how on the selection process, on the material side, on the maintenance process of those materials, and then in the decommissioning. Another piece that AMP is very active in, John, is the standards development that goes around those pieces of materials. And so the material may not be able to be adapted due to technology, but what we learn from it in those scenarios, we can change the standards process. So when we're writing new standards or updating existing standards, we can change those maintenance intervals. We can use new technologies in the inspection processes and so forth.
Now, well, let me ask you this follow up here. In this program, we talk a lot about energy, and everybody knows that one of the great technologies that we need, right, for material science is batteries.
Yeah.
And if you look at and of course, we have a guy at the University of Texas, good enough, who won a Nobel Prize for storage. So when you look at the national laboratories and look at what you do, and I will say that if you begin to look at, and if you will begin to rank things in importance of what you do, it is the solid state batteries and advances in solid state batteries. That's very, very important for our electric future. How does your group, your business, quote unquote, your 501c, look at that kind of technology? Because I think that's a cutting edge problem with batteries.
Okay. We have we have several committees, program committees, John, that are built out across the organization with about 2,500 volunteers. Many of those PhDs out of research programs like yours and at UT, and we're strong partners with Texas A&M, along with universities in Qatar to India. The applied research that we look at, we don't have anything, to my knowledge, specifically directed at battery or battery storage. What we do have is a robust repository of knowledge around electrolysis and how that's used in the cathodic protection side of the materials space that we work in. But I don't know specifically about battery technologies that we. I'm sure we have someone in our membership that is knee deep in that or neck deep in that. I'm just unaware of it.
I'd love to ask some questions about batteries, but first, I'm interested in corrosion and what is happening. We're putting all sorts of things into the ocean that we never did before. Most obviously windmills, but we're putting a lot of other stuff in. There's a lot of undersea technology going on. It is the sort of frontier that is mostly ignored. However, corrosion is the great struggle with the ocean. And the United States Navy, along with the British Navy and many other navies, have spent probably at this point tens of billions, if not more money, fighting corrosion. And yet the only thing they seem to be able to do is to paint, repaint, scale and paint, scale, paint, scale, paint. I wonder to what extent that is changing, whether there is really any technology or whether there are materials that are resistant to ocean corrosion, and are they being used? And what's happening to all these wind turbines? Are they going to finally collapse because they've been eaten away by corrosion, or the other enemy of things installed in water, electrolysis? I pulled up with some scientists, I'm not a scientist, but some scientists once in the Chesapeake Bay, a buoy, and the connecting chain was almost looked like paper clips. It had once been huge steel, and of course we have a problem with hulls that just disintegrate, especially aluminum hulls. So I wonder, are we winning the battle on corrosion? Or is it, like my trying to educate Dr. Brown, Butler, a
Wait a
continuing
minute, I cannot
necessity.
believe you called me. I cannot believe, you know, I mean, I will never forgive you for that. Right. Okay.
It's the corrosion in my mind that is responsible. Go
Those
ahead.
are, those are all great points. And there's a lot there to unpack. We would like to believe that we're making a difference in the war on corrosion. What I understand, and I'm not a scientist either by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not an engineer as well. I just have the honor to serve a lot of them and learn from them. I think from the science, we know that you never probably defeat corrosion as long as it continues to occur in the manner that it does. But we are making huge strides in the development around arresting that, prolonging the life cycle of materials. Offshore wind and the renewable sector there is huge. We have started some new subcommittees around that, and we hope to be a part of the standards development organization or companies around the world that write those standards to be able to prolong those materials, because there's a lot of cost into that. Asset owners are putting forth in those investments. Our members want to help prolong that and extend that life cycle. The corrosivity of the oceanic environment is not news to anyone. And as soon as we crack on how to solve that, you probably won't be able to reach me for an interview because I'll be retired and on a beach somewhere learning how to play songs like John there. But we are making a
that Dr. Butler is retired, but that wasn't because of age. That was to protect students.
Well, when I retired, look what happened to campuses. I would have everything under control.
Oh, goodness.
Ellen, let me ask you this. That kind of relate to what Lou Ellen was talking about. You know, as a guitarist, I like Brazilian rosewood, but there are a lot of substitutes that's different, right? And in your space in material sciences, talk some about substitutes, switching costs.
Sure.
Are there substitutes that we can use that's better than we have now? Whether it's how we build airplanes with certain kind of materials, more importantly to me, about the energy kinds of crisis we have. Do you see substitute materials that's much better than we have now?
We
that's
do,
not on the market of the substitution costs.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Butler. Absolutely, yes. And I'll just pick up one piece of the answers back to Dr. King there. We work almost exclusively with the Navy on their battle against corrosion. We work very closely with the DoD in their corrosion office. We have an office in DC, and we work hand in hand with both Coast Guard and Navy and NAVSEA. We've created a great deal of their standards, and they utilize our certification programs for their inspectors and to manage their coding systems. And there are new technologies that come out that are better resistant to corrosion in the ocean. And those come from our coating manufacturers that we work hand in hand with. Again, the research laboratories are always looking at ways to create more resilient and resistant coatings. John, to your point, we see right now there is a very strong shift to what in the industry we call as non-metallics. Mm-hmm. And so you see a lot of research being done now around polymers and other materials, some carbon fiber, things of that nature. But it goes back to your point, right? It becomes that cost benefit analysis back to the asset owner on that material selection. And either way, our group is working on the research side of that, but also on the life cycle side to extend the way that our members look at it, and our policy or perspective is the longer we can extend the life cycle of existing materials in the infrastructure, that is we don't know the exact trade-off, but that is that much less sourcing that has to be done. And therefore consuming that energy to do the sourcing and the manufacturing and fabrication to get that into a usable product, right? But we
well,
definitely
let
see
me
a
just say
huge
this.
rise in non-metallics.
That is a very important point, Alan, when we're looking at extending the life of nuclear power plants to 100 years. The other large materials change that we're likely to see is in power lines, where we are getting lighter lines that carry greater loads, sometimes
Right.
2 and 3 times the load for which they were originally designed, but when re-engineered, or basically the connectors are restrung. When that happens, you change the electric equation quite substantially, but it's very expensive to do. In batteries, I find it very interesting. We have so many batteries, but there's also evolution. The lead acid battery is a lot better than it was even 50 years ago, when we were still putting distilled water into the gas station. And if you were smart about it, you could even put in your own acid and burn big holes in your clothes if you didn't do it well. I did. That's how I know. But so you've got 2 things here. You've got new materials, but you've also got life cycle materials and just improving that life cycle. Tell me, does your organization have any bench work, or is it all managerial? I mean, do you actually have laboratories in which you study coatings, etc.?
So the association itself does not own any of those laboratories, but we do partner and support those laboratories globally. And our members are the ones who actually run and operate those laboratories, from the management all the way down to the actual testing. We have multiple opportunities throughout the year for researchers to publish their research and do presentations, both at our annual conference, and then we have regional events around the world that are highly competitive, where our doctoral students are always bringing forth, cutting edge ideas on extending life cycle or new material, or reduction in energy and material sourcing. So we work hand in hand with them, but we don't own any laboratories, research labs.
So I was gonna,
Let me just say this. I have solved your problem with corrosion in ships, and on behalf of 512 CMG Consulting, that problem has been solved. I've been working with
Awesome.
I've been working with the scientists and engineers from Florida, and they have solved that problem. And I want to introduce you to them.
Thank you.
It is a startup, and they are doing erosions, and it's just been fantastic. I think they're working with China now, and they must work with America. It's been tough getting into that space. So
I would love to meet
512 CMG, we have solved that problem for America, and you will work now with 512 CMG, and Andreas and John Butler, and we will solve that problem for you.
Then we can retire. We can go.
The only thing that we ask is total compensation.
Got it. Understood.
No, seriously, I look at a lot of technologies, and I really looked into it in terms of what they were doing, and they do the coatings for ships.
Okay.
Fantastic technologies. I want to introduce you to the.
Please do. We would love to highlight that technology. Yeah, sure.
And I want to, matter of fact, after the program, we need to get on a 3-way call right away, because this is for America. Although I was in the Army, and when I was in Vietnam, they were sitting out there on ships throwing stuff in, drinking and partying. I still like the Navy.
hey, Alan, I wanna just dive deeper into what you guys are doing. So workforce development, enhancement, innovation is sort of the crux of the challenge, right? We have all these people, the world is changing too fast. If somebody were to ask me today, I'm a electrical mechanical guy, at Texas State University teaching, but also in industry with CMG and a former computer telecom energy guy. And I would say materials. I would want to be a materials engineer. You guys do a lot of courses, work. You have these programs, the quick links programs. You have certifications. Give us a sense for what's going on in the industry. How many people are getting trained on a monthly basis? how many people are coming from out of nowhere to learn a new skill set? What's happening?
That's a great question. Thank you. In fact, we have like to give appreciation to our boards of directors. We we're in the process of reforming. AMP has several entities. One of those is a charitable 501c3 organization, and we're actually reformatting it exclusively for the purpose of workforce development on a global scale. We do handle certification. We have over 80,000 individuals globally that currently hold one of our certifications in either coatings inspection or cathodic protection inspection, bridge inspection, coatings removal, you name it. We've got some new products hopefully coming to the market soon. We're fast working on some fireproofing programs. That's a really big driver. We see this occurring out of the EV space. So out of the gigafactories and the battery factories, John, to your point, as those manufacturing centers increase, the safety hazards in those from fire and the intrinsic safety of those buildings is very important and it's volatile. And so we see fireproofing as a huge it's an old technology, so to speak. It's nothing new, but the demand has increased substantially, especially in Canada. We've had some meetings up there just a few weeks ago around that. But Andres, to your point, we're looking at ways right now to actually partner with sister organizations or organizations like ours with everything from sovereign wealth funds to public enterprise and private enterprise to address the workforce problem. It is the #1 issue facing every one of the CEOs that I visit with. When I sit down and talk to one of our asset owners and ask them what keeps them up at night, it's workforce, lack thereof, right, of a workforce. And as as much as we see it in front and center here in the U.S., it's exponentially worse in the developing countries. They have the volume, they have the population, but they don't have the skill sets or they don't have the training and education. So that's why we've got behind this C3. We're looking at some exponential growth into India. We have chapters throughout India. We have over 1,000 members in India, but their infrastructure is growing at light speeds compared to what we have here in the U.S. And they're looking to us for standards development. That's one way that we can help. We're trying to train and possibly look at building some training centers to increase that opportunity. We have training centers in Kuala Lumpur, which we run, and we're trying to get as many folks through there as possible. It's a big challenge, and it's going to take more than just AMPP to help meet that. And so we're reaching out, looking at we work hand in hand with our universities. For scholarships. We delivered $2.5 million in scholarships last year, I think. But we try to bring that all the way down to the blue collar worker level as well, and try to make it equitable where we can bring as many as we can into the workplace.
That was my next question, though. Let's go back to the fact that I have solved your corrosion on ships.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a conversation with that CEO. But my question was, in the international competition of corrosion perfection, preventing corrosion, and look at does the science from China, is it better than ours? Is the science from India better than ours? So on the one hand, we really like the internationalization of the workforce.
Yep. But
in my world, it is a technology that drives the new technologies or the old technologies, as my distinguished colleague Lou Ellen King would say. So my question is, are there new technologies that you have discovered that's better than ours around the globe for corrosion protection for ships? Is it all about America? Besides the guy I'm going to introduce you to, I would call his name, but it's an international program.
Sure.
We get on the phone with it. But how do you see for I mean, are we working with China? Are we working with Dubai? Do we work all together for corrosion? Or do we have this nationalistic attitude about this business?
The good news, at least to me, is that it is not a nationalistic perspective. And I would never try to rank one research over the other. I don't have that. That's way above my pay grade and my intelligence. But I will share this with you because I do get to visit these laboratories, and I do get to meet with the donors who are sponsoring a lot of this research. And even to the comments in the opening part of the show. And really refreshing to me is that inside of the Association for Materials Protection and Performance, it is a global network, and it does transcend the issues of the day. And we are able to do our work, and we are able to focus in a unified manner on battling the enemy of corrosion. And that enemy is just as bad in every part of the world. It actually is worse in some areas. There's some areas in Saudi that the corrosivity of the groundwater is 10 times that of what we experience here in the US. Off the coast of Chile, we work a lot in that area with biofouling. And it's just a plethora of opportunity. Our members use the slogan that corrosion never sleeps. It doesn't stop for skirmishes and war. It doesn't stop for economic downturns. It doesn't rest at all. And so our members do work in a very unified manner. There is a friendly competition, but usually that competition is for dollars, right? And notoriety. It's not to say one science is better than the other, but they are all working together.
Yeah, so Alan, so the entrepreneur that I'm gonna introduce you to, then he could fight corrosion with American ships. He can fight corrosion with English ships, with Chinese ships. And I like that because
But to your answer, we do work. We have an office in Beijing.
Yeah.
We do work in China very well together.
Okay. This is
I'd
good.
like to, Alan, I'd like to ask you about certification.
Yes, sir.
It comes up all the time, but it seems quite competitive. All sorts of people offer certification, certifies the certifiers. Recently, I was in Greece and interviewed a billionaire, I believe, who runs PeopleCert, and to hear him tell the story, his company does all the certification on earth, but of course it doesn't. What is the competition, and how do you evaluate the value of a certification? Great
question. We do have competition, even though we're in the nonprofit sector. Just as you understand from the universities, you guys are in the same boat, nonprofit, but high competition, right? There are competing programs around the world that have certifications for individuals in coating inspection and cathodic protection. Dr. King, the way that I rely on a level of respect or acceptability from the markets is you let the markets tell you which one they want. And what we see is two ways we measure that. Is one, just by the natural demand for our courses or our certification. The second is the number of places where our certification shows up in regulations or in standards or in specifications. And so you'll find that if you're going to build a pipeline across North America, you've got to have our certification professionals working in that pipeline. That's coming out of regulations and coming out of owner specifications. So right now, and we do keep score at home, the AMPP certifications and credentials are the most demanded globally, and they're the most recognized globally. And they also have the highest level of specification inside regulatory and non-regulatory bodies. We always have to keep evolving, though. We have to stay and keep those fresh, stay up with the new technologies. One of the new technologies that's really impacting our members in our industry is robotics. That is a huge positive, we believe, move. For one, the safety factor. It takes a lot of the potential safety hazards to humans out of that inspection process that they're having to go through or have gone through in the past. You get more consistent reporting, higher efficiency in the robotics, and you still need people to run the robots, right? It doesn't eliminate the total jobs, but we see drones and robots is a really great example of that. And so we're working on certifications around those new technologies as well to stay relevant.
You raised AI earlier and you now raised it again as it's a driver of robotics or potential driver of robotics. What problems can it solve purely as a calculator? Can it calculate because of its incredible ability to do trillions of calculations in fractions of a minute, fractions of a second, actually? Can it solve some of the corrosion problems by examining all the frontiers simultaneously? And is that an objective?
I think it is, and I don't know the how to quantify that exactly. That would be a good follow-up for me to get some information back to your show from our labs and our partners in research. Again, I know that the use of the digital twin technology and then the application of that hyperspeed computing to run different scenarios, that's been very helpful. They can take the forecasted corrosion process, right? And they can run that out in, like you said, like in milliseconds, right? Where in history, it would sit in the laboratory and just watch it corrode, right, through a tank.
Yeah, it's very interesting. In
Yeah.
medicine, for example, they're looking at off-label uses, where you've had thousands, in fact, millions of compounds that have been developed in the pharmaceutical industry over the decades, and applying them to particular medicines for which they have never been tried. It would seem to me, because of the diversity of corrosion, and you just emphasized that in the different qualities of water around the world, that you could do those calculations very profitably.
I'm sure that we have some PhDs somewhere doing that, and I can get back to you on something
Well,
specific.
don't worry, Dr. Butler's going to put you out of work, so it's
Right, I can retire now.
I
He
mean,
solves corrosion.
I told you, I have an entrepreneur that says solve your problem. And so, but the entrepreneur is going to work with,
and I have a bridge I'm going to sell to you in New York.
CMG Consulting. The
Let me-
problem of
let me-
corrosion for ships is solved. So after the program, we're going to talk to him, and I think he's listening to the program right now.
Right.
I think that what I'm saying is that I think that the science is completely changing, and I think I worry about shipping costs. But it seems to me if you have a ship when it needs to be resurfaced, they can just roll into and get it resurfaced. And what I need to do with him, as we do with 512 CMG Consulting, is to get him with the top military people so that we can take care of the erosion of American ships at sea.
That's a huge problem. I just left last week. I was in the Newport News meeting with some of the folks in the shipyards up in Norfolk. Actually, one of the new processes that we're working through and with them and supporting them is to hopefully avoid a lot of what you just said, John. A great portion of our Navy and our defense system is in dry dock. And if we can help prevent that, and we're working right now to develop programs and products and processes where the onboard sailors can manage and maintain most of that corrosion at sea, then that helps our defense and it saves money at the defense budget level. And that's something that we're very keen on right now and building a larger group in this workforce development team to see how do we work closer to keep those ships out of dry dock and keep them on the water, protecting us and doing their jobs.
Yes, sir.
Let me-
Llewellyn King knows it's always good to come through 512 CMG because we have solved your
Got
problem.
it.
Let me chime
They're
in.
going to
real quick,
solve
guys.
my financial problem soon.
You need to move to the great state of Texas. We don't mess with people in the People's Republic of America. Move to the great state
All
of
right,
Texas.
guys.
You guys
All
will get
right,
me in
guys.
trouble. I don't know.
Let me jump in here real quick to go even deeper into Alan's world. So I just want to share for everybody listening the kind of things that they do. So they have all kinds of programs, hundreds, thousands of programs, field application to complex industrial and marine structures, field removal of hazardous coatings, shop painting, accreditation for coating and lining inspection companies, contractor metallizing, painter contractor introductory program, installation of polymer coatings and surfaces on concrete and other cementous surfaces, field application for architectural coatings, quality management systems, nuclear coating supplement, which is all about evaluates the qualification of industrial coating contractors that perform work in nuclear power plant and shop facilities. I mean, these guys are working on stuff that most people don't think about, but without this stuff, nothing happens, Johnny.
Yes, and without 512 CMG, we're working on it too. Here's the deal. What we do at CMG Consulting is really look at the new technologies and the new ideas and help entrepreneurs and solve problems, right? And so my deal is to look at a lot of, whether it's a traditional old technology, and ask one question. I mean, can we solve this issue? And sometimes it's related to electricity. So Andreas and I are working with corporate America and trying to get a deal where we can bring all the technologies to help getting the grid in terms of getting stuff back on the grid. Well, what I see in your case is I see a case for 512 CMG Consulting to come in and get us into the military, and we bring with you the technology that will solve this problem. As Luella knows, there's so much technology sitting on the shelf, and the problem is switching costs. But at one time, we have to say, we don't need our ships sitting in dry dock. We have the coating that we can put them back in the sea, and we move forward. And I'm just saying, I said again, problem solved.
Got it. I can't wait.
Sometimes the solution is not, it's not conventional coating. It may be like a sheet of graphene, which will change the nature of the surface on which it is spread because it makes it much stronger, and it will be essentially eternal. There are many possibilities here. It's a very exciting world you're in now. Very exciting.
It is. I'll tell you, one of the most exciting things we have happening right now is we're working closely with the Panama Canal. And I'm sure you've seen their struggles in the media in the last 5 years with the depletion of the freshwater sources. They struggle with corrosion. They're in it every day, right? They have probably one of the most valuable assets on the planet to commerce and to global shipping. And we're currently working with them. I was just there about a month and a half ago to meet with their leadership, and we're trying to get them into our program where they would be an AMPP qualified shop under our Q3 program, and then they would.
It's fascinating. I went down to look at the Panama Canal last year. It's something I wanted to ask, which probably is not relevant. That I'm fascinated by the Eiffel Tower because it's built of iron, not steel. And prima facie, you would think that there's huge corrosion, and that it seems to be amazingly durable. They do paint it a lot. Have we learned any lessons from the Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, I'll have to look in the archives on that one, Dr. King. I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know, but I'm sure there's some research that's been done.
I'm not a doctor, but thank you for the honor. Well, I am an honorary, but I don't want to be put in the same class as Dr. Butler, so I
understand
that distinction.
I still love him to death, Alan. You know, Alan, let me tell you how all of this started. He told me, Alan, he was from Africa, so he was an African American. And I was just some Creole boy from Louisiana, and stopped calling myself African American because I was a disgrace to the continent. But he's right.
Oh man,
I said
we've loved each other ever
of the
since.
sort, but if it helps him get a free meal here and there, he's welcome to keep spreading this heresy.
He is the true African, and I'm just kind of hanging out. Anyway, yeah, I think that, Alan, you are in a great, and look, it goes through all kinds of material science.
right.
And what I see is not what is, but what's the future also. And I think that, and I see the switching costs of material science, okay? Whether something falls from outer space that we don't know about, whether something comes out of the laboratory that we don't know about, material science and our ability to fly through space, no corrosion through space, to certify that the space shuttle does not have any cracks, to certify that the airplane that we're flying in very, very quickly as it lands does not have any stress parts that's going to fall apart. And I think you're right there at the intersection of AI that's going to help you do this, the human being, and Llewellyn is a pilot. He can tell you there's nothing like a human being, because he's, you know, I said, Llewellyn, you know what we call a pilot now? A passenger. Well, the pilot has to be aware of things around him. And I think it would be great to have sensors from you and AI in the pilot's seat, so Llewellyn as a pilot can turn around and say, I'm not taking off because I see a crack
Right.
in the wing. And I think that's where material science is really coming in.
Right.
But
Yeah.
remember,
Very good,
5
Johnny.
CMG solve your problem. Check
We,
your email. We're gonna call right after this.
Amazing.
Alan, on my spare time, I run a bunch of labs here at Texas State University, and one of the cool things that we talk about is something that we came up with about 5 years ago. We call it materials with intelligence, where you're adding compute capability and memory and all those things to materials.
Right.
And I would be remiss to share with you, for the audience as well, you know, the coolest thing that I have seen on the lab yet to find itself to Target or Home Depot or Best Buy. I was in Japan about 6 years ago in a laboratory, a joint venture between Hitachi and Toshiba, and they showed us a new paint that is still in the lab because it's too expensive. But they painted this room for this paint, and we walked into the room, and the room was dark. But as we were talking and we were perspiring and generating heat from our body, the paint took that heat and started creating electrons, and the lights went on.
Oh, wow.
Have you seen anything like that?
I've not seen that yet. That's amazing.
That's totally fascinating. I wonder what would happen if you had that paint and Johnny and I were in the room together.
Oh man.
I don't know. I don't know, but I can
Yes.
tell you what, it'll see me, but it won't see you. I actually saw that on Star Wars, by the way. I saw that on Star Wars, but that's the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
because
So,
it's
so
really-
Alan, what's
Mhm.
in it? What's in front of you for the next 6 months? What you probably travel too much and you see too many cool things and talk to great people all day
Sure.
long. What's in front of you?
Well, I will. We have our legislative week coming up in middle of May, just a few weeks out. That's where we bring in our members from around the U.S. and even internationally, and we spend a week in Washington, D.C., working with our legislators, working with our agencies, doing our best to educate them on the technology and the advancements we're making in corrosion. We're also looking for funding and ways that we can apply what we're doing throughout the government, and that's exciting. We have a great conference coming up in Genoa, Italy. We're tracking to have the best attendance we've had in the European space in a long time. I'll be there in June. That's really exciting. And then over to the Middle East, we've got a lot of opportunities over there. But Andres, I would love to come out and visit your lab at Texas Tech anytime you want, and happy to come out there, and maybe we can get our publications team to look at what your guys are doing and help spread that word as well. So we're always open to expand.
Absolutely. That would
Yeah.
be fabulous. That would be fabulous. That would be fabulous.
We have-
Gentlemen, final thoughts.
Final thoughts are just this is a really invigorating, and I'd love to watch just a duo between Mr. King and Dr. Butler there and see how that plays in a sideshow. That would be fun. But thank you for letting me share the message of AMP. To your point, one more thing that we have coming up on the front lines that we're excited about, should happen in August, maybe late July, is I'll go to China. We actually get our official NGO status in
Oh,
China,
wow.
which is a really big deal. They changed those regulations about 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And we were really unsure about the future of AMP in China. But now we're very excited about it, and I'll be there at that signing ceremony, and that's no small feat.
No, congratulations.
Thank you.
Alan, I look forward to talking to you on behalf of 5
Yeah, I look forward to meeting
and I look forward to the wrestling match between Llewellyn King and myself that's scheduled for conference.
We have been on the wrestling.
We were going to do a sumo match, but we decided we'll do it in mud instead.
But Alan, you're doing great stuff, and let's talk about the technology that I have for the coding.
Okay. Well, I would love
I
to.
send everything to you, and I CC.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me.
Alan, thank you for being with us today. I look forward to staying in touch. I think workforce development, what you're offering to industry and individuals, perhaps changing many people's lives and never thought they could have a new career.
Absolutely.
It's very exciting to me. We'll promote what you're doing, going forward. And stay in touch. We'll have you back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Johnny, take us away.
In the Southland, there's a city way down the river where the women are very pretty and all the men deliver. They got music playing all the time. Starts in the daylight and go on in the morning. And when you hear that music playing, I wanna tell you, gonna feel all right. So grab somebody and come on down. Grab your paintbrush, painting the town. There's a lot of good stuff going down. See you down in New Orleans.
Woo! How about some
You got
beignets?
Good and bad. Food to make you happy or make you real sad. Lose everything you got, get what you had. Down in New Orleans. Hey, Alan, don't be shy. Come on back down and give us a try. Cause if you wanna do some living before you die, do it down in New Orleans.
Absolutely. That's awesome. We just had our annual conference in New Orleans. It was great.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Hold on, Alan, don't get
All
off.
right, cheers. Great to have